And now on one, here's Anne Robinson back from holiday and ready to air more of your points of view.
Hello, good evening. It's nice to be back. And no, that's right. I don't have a suntan, and nor does anyone else who's just had their holes in Britain. Anyway, have you been looked after properly while I've been away?
Dear Anne, while you were away, there were cat noises which made our dog attack the TV.
Always a problem, Christopher Watt of Penshaw. When the boss is away, the cats will. But no matter, everything is now back to normal.
Especially Top of the Pops. Same stale old format, lifeless and not very good miming, same old flashing lights, and most of the so-called artists obviously just pulled off the street.
Miss Campbell remembers the time when
There was no miming, and artists who could really sing, look smart, actually smiled, and looked as if they were enjoying themselves.
Miss Campbell suggests
Why not show a complete Top of the Pops from the 60s? It really would show up today's talentless hordes.
because Miss Campbell, that sort of thing always has one's teenage children rolling round the floor taking the mickey. Times, alas, have changed. Haven't they, Ed Stockdale?
Yes, I sat down to watch the Royal Tournament, hoping to enjoy it as I used to about 10 years ago.
And what did you see this year, Ed? Flashing lights and soldiers miming to motorbike noises?
No, abysmal camera work.
I sent an expert.
Take the King's Troop being shown by the panoramic camera, and the very next moment a wobbly, blurry shot of a horse's hindquarters. It was such a shock, Fred fell off the television.
No, I'm not going to ask who Fred is, but he probably fell off again during the field gun run, and try saying that after the pub shut.
It was not the field gun run as seen by Her Majesty the Queen, but we were led to believe it was, even down to seeing the Duke of Edinburgh taking the team salute.
According to David Tall of Crapstone,
Her Majesty the Queen saw the competition between the Fleet Air Arm versus Portsmouth,
is she the lucky one?
and we saw the Fleet Air Arm versus Devonport.
Anyway, on to far more important matters.
At the beginning of Neighbours, Paul smashes Madge's window, but she doesn't mind. No one even bothers. Is it cheap for a single mother in Australia to replace a few broken windows each week?
Now, was that episode 994 or 873?
It would be helpful if all soap opera episodes were given a serial number.
Reverend Alan Binney from Lichfield suggests...
This would make it simple when one has been away, etc., to watch out for the appropriate repeat.
And repeats of Neighbours would, if Peter Hartley from Barnsley had his way, be...
An hour-long weekend showing, or longer if necessary, of all the Monday to Friday series, as, for example, is done for EastEnders.
But Mr H, Michelle Birtsby doesn't like repeats.
Dear Anne, Rhubarb, The Family Nest, The Muppet Babies, High Mat, When in Spain, The Living Planet, Allo Allo, One by One, Calypso Cricket, The Lost Composer, Pretty the Hedgehog, Dallas, Mind How You Go.
There's more.
Paddington Animal Roadshow, Hokey Cokey, and Sickness and in Health, The Third Man, Wildflower, One is Fun, On the House, Simon and the Witch, Pole Position, Only Fools and Horses, Happy Families, The Duty Men, The Flump, Steptoe and Son, Bread.
Whoops. Stop there, stop there.
On the second time around, I found Bread even funnier than the first showing.
Writes Jimmy Woodruff of Newcastle upon Tyne, and Dorothy Jennings of North Endon suggests...
The episode with Aveline going into hospital should go down in history as a classic, along with Tony Hancock's Blood Donor.
What's more, the recent omnibus production of Heathcote Williams's epic poem wasn't a repeat. And for those who didn't catch it, Whale Nation asks why man looks to distant planets for other intelligence rather than his own, and was illustrated in part with disturbing footage of the slaughter of many of these lovely mammals at the hands of man. One viewer thought,
It was the most captivating 45 minutes of delightful, moving, beautiful, and yet sickening television.
another found it,
So sensitively produced, it had me laughing and crying.
and those extremities of emotion were expanded by Tina Dudley of Crowborough.
1 minute I was watching and listening to a wonderful poem, a fabulous symphony of divine magic and harmony, the kings of supreme peace, fun and love. The next minute I was fighting the impulse to be sick. I could not believe that the human race could be so aimlessly destructive.
And Tina ends by saying that ever since,
I have been emotionally drained. I never realized what an effect TV could have.
Eleanor Pavel confesses that she is,
Ashamed to be part of the human race.
and asks,
Why do we always destroy the beautiful things of our planet? When will we ever learn?
when indeed, Eleanor, here's a brief look at those beautiful and intelligent creatures.
Naked, with skin like oiled silk, smooth as glass, they move at 50 miles an hour, attaining faultless streamlining by subtly changing the shape of their bodies, altering ridges of cartilage and indentations of flesh to correspond to constantly differing patterns of water, to accommodate minute oscillations with vibrant inflections of muscle and skin so that layers of liquid glide over each other in an easy laminar flow. No drag, no turbulence, a velvet energy.
Aren't they majestic? Whale nation. And from man's inhumanity to beast to man's inhumanity to man.
I remain haunted by the scene of the young Australian conscript in Vietnam, immobilised by terror after stepping on a pressure release mine. I had never realised that such an abominable contraption existed.
Thus says Miss A.E. Phillips of Exeter, and nearly universal praise for this series, but Anne Osborne of Brackley objected to the showing of what she called
Degrading scenes. I do not doubt that such atrocities happened, but the time has come to stop glorifying war. It breeds violence because the bored and the easily led equate it with entertainment.
But whatever your views, there's one aspect of Vietnam you all seem to agree upon.
Every Wednesday night, my mum says, "What is that music?" Please answer her question and put me out of misery.
Delighted Catherine Hewlett, age 13, from Bedford, my absolutely favourite piece of music, which I know as Canon in D by Pachelbel, but they say I've got to pronounce Pachelbel. And a good week for music in general. Here's E.C. Bowman on The Young Person's Guide to the Orchestra.
A splendid interpretation of this well-known and amusing piece of music.
And he adds,
Pure Hoffnung, in fact.
anything else caught your ear musically? Ah, they're playing Harold Clark's theme.
Whose finger is it which triggers the quotation of this brassy fragment of the signature tune, which punctuates every item in the main news programmes with such irritating predictability? It is certainly high time that the urge to pepper the news with senseless repetitions of a musical snippet was restrained before the overworked device begins to invade sentences as well.
And then, as always, there is the weather. Case Barham Netheridge complains that...
The new map of temperatures in colour is totally useless when one has a black and white television.
Of course it is. And 13-year-old Joanne Moody pleads...
Could you please go back to your old way of doing the weather?
Why's that, Joanne?
Because nowadays you all seem to get it wrong.
You'd agree with that, wouldn't you, J. Allen Brown?
I was incensed at the answer to a letter on the question of the exclusion of Newcastle upon Tyne in the Met Office temperature figures. The reply by Bill Giles was patronising and insulting, typical of a south-based approach to the north.
Anything else wrong?
What a bunch of Philistines at the Beeb.
They won't understand a big word like that, Dennis Williamson, age 23 and a half of Harlow.
Well, I was unfortunate to watch A Question of Entertainment on Sunday, July 24th.
So?
Up flashed a picture of Alan Tracy out of Thunderbirds.
Go on.
But Tom O'Connor said it was Scott Tracy and he piloted Thunderbird 1. Nonsense. Alan Tracy usually piloted Thunderbird 3.
If you say so, Dennis. And from a dynamic duo to a terrific trio.
Kiri was magnificent. Jeremy was magnificent. Warren was magnificent.
Arthur Kennedy from Burton-on-Trent expresses what so many of you feel.
An evening with Kiri Takanawa with songs from My Fair Lady. A superb production which brought all the atmosphere straight into my living room. This was a classic in entertainment.
Just like bread, and Arthur sums up the whole programme by exclaiming,
I could have watched all night.
I bet you couldn't think only one viewer who wrote spotted that it was a repeat. I'll see you next week and leave you in the company of Kiri. Oh, and by the way, male viewers, small letters, please. Good night.
On BBC2 shortly, the second part of the drama series tracing the life of George Washington, who rose from humble beginnings to become the first American president. Here on 1, the news is next, and then at 9:30, country and western singer Johnny Cash stars in our film Murder in Coweta County, a story of one man's fight against lawlessness. At 11 o'clock, the late Great Britain is Charles Darwin and his theory of the survival of the fittest. Then at 11:30, it's Dave Lee Travis and the Golden Oldie Picture Show, including such numbers as You've Got Your Troubles, I've Got Mine by The Fortunes, and Ballroom Blitz by Sweet. You're watching BBC1.
The 9 o'clock news from the BBC with Nicholas Witchell and Andrew Harvey.
Picked their latest targets, an off-duty Ulster policeman and a soldier shopping with his family.
Secretary of State Tom King says any decent person must reject them with contempt.
Iranians take to the streets. Their president warns the UN talks may not bring peace.
The secret Soviet site, how the Blackjack bomber was on full view to the west.
And Gooch into the breach, England's 4th captain in 5 tests. Good evening. The IRA continued their...